Ladies and gentlemen, my name is TotalBiscuit. I'm here to ask and answer one simple question. WTF is Homeworld Deserts of Kharak? Well, it is a ground-based prequel to the Homeworld series, which is a little odd. And you might be thinking, where the hell did this come from? I had no idea this was even coming out. Well, did you hear of a game called Homeworld Shipbreakers? No? Okay. What about Hardware Shipbreakers? Are we getting somewhere? So, here's what happened. The company that made the game is called Blackbird Interactive. It's a new studio that consists of some of the people that were behind the original Homeworld games. Now, what they did was started to come up with a spiritual successor to Homeworld, which they called Hardware Shipbreakers, and the idea was it was going to be kind of a spiritual prequel, and you're going to have Homeworld-like gameplay, but it's going to be on the ground. It's going to be in the desert. It's going to be about breaking apart ships for technology and all that sort of good stuff. The odd thing about it is that they then were able to get in touch with Gearbox and get the official license. This is after they attempted to buy the license and failed when it first went up for auction. So Gearbox made this an official Homeworld game, and then they renamed it Homeworld: The Deserts of Kharak. I honestly think that Shipbreakers was a better title, considering that that's actually a core mechanic of the campaign in particular, but we'll go with it. Whatever the case, this is a ground-based real-time strategy. We don't get a lot of those, and we certainly don't get a lot with the pedigree of Homeworld. The question is, does it live up to past expectations? If you're going to call your game Homeworld, then you are attaching some fairly high expectations from people, I think. And that's fair. If you're going to exploit the name of a storied and critically acclaimed franchise, you better damn well do it right. Did they? Well, I'll tell you. First things first, over to the options menu. For some reason, this whole menu runs at 30 FPS. Does that matter? Not really. Is it weird? Yes. It also doesn't seem to respect the resolution that you set. This will change to 1080p when I go into game, but in this menu, I'm actually at 2560 by 1440. I don't know why that is. It's a bit weird. Outside of that, you got your full screen options on or off, no borderless, unfortunately. And then you have shadow quality, fog bloom, and AA settings. I don't exactly know what kind of AA this is, it doesn't tell you. Texture quality, decal draw distance, and then, of course, your anisotropic filtering slider up to 16. Then a few FX options, including dynamic decals. Now, what you've got here is Enlips. Now, Enlips kind of dynamically scales units. So if you want really, really big units compared to really small units, kind of like Homeworld, you turn Enlips off. If you're a little bit more interested in having them scale in a way that's a bit more practical, then leave Enlips on. FX quality here goes up to Ultra. Maximum level of detail, physics, max LOD. It's a little bit weird that you've got two different settings that sound very similar, but one is, of course, for the FX and one is just for max LOD in general. Debris persistence and tracks lifetime. Okay, so the kind of options that I think you would expect there, nothing really out of the ordinary, nothing obvious that's missing for an RTS graphically. Move on to the sound menu, and you've got separate sliders for everything, as well as a voice count setting. We'll actually put that up to Ultra, why not? And we've got subtitles there as well, so again, nothing really missing there either. Controls, here's where things are missing. These controls are not rebindable. That, to me, is a cardinal sin in RTS. Absolute cardinal sin. If you've played StarCraft 2 or, honestly, any competitive RTS, you probably have your own preferred hotkeys. The problem is here, you can't do any of those things. And even if you could, it doesn't actually list the hotkeys for building certain units, which is ridiculous. I mean, it's absolutely insane that they would omit that. I don't know how to explain it. So I'm not really happy with that. And if we move on to gameplay here, then you'll see that you've got camera edge, as well as things like sticky selection, focus on click, tactical overlay, and all that sort of thing. I mean, you could give like 50 plus different HUD options that are probably missing here. And I really base that mostly on StarCraft 2, that has obviously spent 6+ years developing a large suite of HUD options for competitive play. Now, the reason I mention this is because while you might be thinking, well, who cares about Homeworld competitive play? You're going to be playing this for the campaign. What I'm going to tell you is that the campaign is relatively lengthy, but I feel I'm almost through it after about 11 hours of gameplay, and at least 2 of those hours I spent in the Skirmish mode testing out the AI. I've got all of the unit types available already in the campaign, and I'm feeling like I'm getting close to the end. Now, the replayability of this game, of course, as a result, is going to come from the multiplayer and from Skirmish. I couldn't test the multiplayer because this is a pre-release version and no one was playing it. but I can show you the Skirmish, which is what I'm going to be showing you today because I don't want to spoil the story. It being a Homeworld game, the story and, of course, the cutscenes and all that sort of thing are relatively important, so I wouldn't want to spoil any of that for you. So what I will do is I'll show you a Skirmish game that should give you a grasp of the mechanics and also tell you a little bit about my experience so far in the campaign without talking about the story. So let's jump into Skirmish. The options here are very bare bones. You have two factions here which are quite similar, the Coalition and the Galcian. The Coalition are the faction that you play in the campaign, and the Galcian are your antagonists. Now, the differences between them initially seem very cosmetic. For instance, the Galcian stuff hovers, and the Coalition units do not. This does not make a huge amount of difference in how they perform. But there are some subtle differences. For instance, the Galcians have a production cruiser, which can be used to produce certain light units, whereas their carrier actually can't build those units. So you're reliant on smaller production cruisers to build that. Whereas the Coalition carrier can build pretty much anything. And there's a couple of little variations on units. For instance, both of these factions have railguns, however the Galcians have the heavy railgun. You basically see almost all of their units available right here on the screen. You see those aircraft, those can be deployed. There are certain cruiser-type vehicles, a base runner, and some smaller tanks and hover vehicles. So that's what you're going to be doing. It's pretty similar to the way the Homeworld did things, where it had two fairly similar factions, but with some subtle differences. I don't mind that too much. I think it's a lot easier to balance if you go that way, but I do have concerns about its replayability as a direct result of that. Now, you've got skins here. I assume these are probably going to be unlocked as either pre-order bonuses or something to do with Shift, because they have built Gearbox Shift, which is their sort of reward system into this game. But you can customize things like primary and secondary color. So if we want to make something absolutely disgusting, we can absolutely do that. We've got a nice little yellow and purple look there. Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, we'll go with that. I'm going to roll with the Coalition. That will give you a bit of a feeling of what the campaign is going to give you, more so than the Galcian will. You can capture Galcian units, as you could in Homeworld, of course, so you will be using some of them, but the Coalition is going to give you a bit of a better feel for the game. Alright, I'm going to take a risk here, because I'm going to make a declaration that might stab me in the back, as it has a tendency to do. The game's AI is way too easy in both campaign and in skirmish mode. It's hidden quite nicely in the campaign mode by the fact that the whole thing is scripted. It can throw wave after wave of units at you without any real regard to its actual resource count. Of course, within the skirmish, the AI is supposed to be playing by the same rules as you. When I played normal mode, I completely thrashed it in my first couple of attempts. No problem at all. The AI was dumb as bricks. I turned it up to hard, and what it appeared to do was mine 3 times what I could, so it cheated. And I still beat it anyway. Now, when I've said this in previous WTFS videos, I've tended to lose, so here's hoping that I don't get this wrong. Now, as you can see, this supports up to 6 players here. It only has 5 maps available, which to me is a very low count for a launch. 2 2-player maps, 2 4-player maps, and a 6-player map. And of course you can do team-based stuff, and that's probably the best way and the most enjoyable way to play the game. The multiplayer does have ranked and unranked modes, and there are a couple of different game modes. For instance, you can turn on artifact retrieval, which is a kind of capture the flag mode. This is an additional win condition. So you find artifacts, you take them to your extraction zone, and of course you try and intercept the enemy as they're trying to do so. Outside of that, you've got Carrier Annihilation and Annihilation. For some reason, Annihilation isn't even toggleable. Maybe it's some... Nope, it just can't be toggled. I don't know why. That's just there by default. So basically, when your carrier dies, you lose the game. Actually, I suppose you wouldn't ever need to turn that off, because if Carrier Annihilation is off, then Annihilation would become default. So you can either destroy all the units or all the enemy carriers. And of course, destroying all the units also means all the enemy carriers. So there you go. Cool. So that's how you do it. There's not really a lot of choice here, and we're going to dive into the game and show you exactly how it plays. We're going to play it on hard, and here's hoping that doesn't come back to bite me in the arse. Alright. Loading times in the game are a little bit long, I've noticed. In particular, in the campaign, I don't really know why that is. I thought it might have something to do with performance issues that this game had, but there was a very strange situation with the release copy. When I got the review build, I noticed it wasn't running very well. And today, which was Monday, prior to the embargo, what happened was, for some reason, the game decided to start running better. And it's because it had an update. And I think the reason why that is because they gave us a 32-bit build, not a 64-bit. Alright, here we are in the game after a couple of restarts. For some reason, the game has this very odd problem in which I don't know why it decides, hey, we're going to tell you that we're running in 1080p, but really we're actually running at 1440p. So the game renders at 1080p resolution, but displays at 1440p, which is a very odd problem. Okay, so welcome to Homeworld Deserts of Kharak. This is your mothership, basically. It's a giant carrier on wheels, which is freaking awesome. I just want to point that out. Now, if you're going to give me a game with a carrier on wheels, I'm probably going to tell you that it's kind of great. And it is, you know, it definitely feels Homeworld-esque with that large mothership. So here I'm able to fabricate various things, and I'm going to start by going up to my engineering and picking a research option. Now, the more of these I research, the more stuff I can build, and that's how the tech tree works for both sides, really. There are some minor differences. For instance, in order to increase the number of units I have to build logistic modules here, whereas that's not the case with the Galcians. They can just research whatever. Now, if we go to tactical view here, which is very, very similar to the view in Homeworld, you'll see that I can order units around and I can see things very clearly, and this will allow me to zoom back in. So, not really a huge problem here, nothing too out of the ordinary. I need some CU units in order to build a support cruiser, so I might do that. But in the meantime, let's maybe build a few light attack vehicles just to start off. Now, of course, all of this can be hotkeyed, but as I mentioned before, you can't rebind these hotkeys, which to me is a very, very silly omission. I'm going to move my carrier back a little bit so that we've got a more efficient farming here. And you'll also notice these wreck bulkheads over here. So, the interesting thing about resources in this game is that you have to send over a salvager to blow up the wreck, and the wreck will then drop resources. Now, in the campaign, this is very relevant because you can gain artifacts from these wrecks, and those artifacts will actually buff up your various abilities. So you'll be able to get, say, 20% extra armor on this vehicle, or more speed, etc., etc. It's very key to the way that the progression works. It looks like we're already under attack. Now I'm going to power up my carrier's weapon systems here. The carrier has a shuntable energy system, which can be shunted between 4 different options: reactive armor, repair defenses, turret network, and range system. So this thing can fight, but it's going to require a little bit of work in order to allow it to fight effectively, and you're going to need power upgrades in order to really make that happen. Alright, I'm going to build a support cruiser here so that we can start getting minerals from these other expansions, and we've chased off those little units here. Now, remember how I mentioned that the AI cheats in this game? Well, the AI cheats in this game. You know, it absolutely blatantly cheats. It builds far more units than it possibly could at this stage, and I know this just by looking at the end results of the games that I've won, where inexplicably they managed to mine 3 times what I did. They also mine out their main base, which is around here, way, way faster than I do. So, yeah, the hard AI cheats, but the normal AI is brain-dead awful. So unless you're not very good at RTS, I can't see yourself enjoying that all that much. So I hate putting myself in that kind of situation, because I do love playing Skirmish, but it seems like this game is going to be, at least on launch, more suited to multiplayer as a result of those AI problems. Okay, we're going to get a support cruiser out here, and this support cruiser will allow me to gather resources from another area. So I'm just going to send these scavengers over here. In the meantime, I'm then going to build a bunch more light attack vehicles, and I'm going to try and harass. But to do that, I'm going to need to build a little logistics point here, which is just thrown out here. That logistics module is going to increase the number of things that I can build. In the meantime, I might want to think about building or researching something else. Let's think about, say, railgun fabrication. There we go. Railgun's a basic long-range unit. We actually have a sand skimmer coming in here. I'm going to move to intercept. As usual, just like Homeworld, it's very, very easy to order your units en masse to a particular area by using the tactical view by hitting space. I love that feature. It works really, really well here in Homeworld Deserts of Kharak as well. All right, let's send the salvager over here. He's going to set a charge here, blow up this area, and then the support cruiser is going to be a very, very handy way of allowing this resource point to be exploited. Once we've got enough units, I'm going to send in some harass, because the AI is not particularly good at dealing with that, so I should be able to do a decent amount of damage, hopefully. In the meantime, we have a lot more money, so we should be spending it maybe on the ability to produce more stuff. Oh, look, a bunch of assault ships that are coming our way. I could not possibly... Actually, I think I could have built the... No, I couldn't. Because of the research speed, there's no way I could have even researched my equivalent in that time. As I said, the AI cheats. Thankfully, we do have our carrier who should be able to deal with this. I don't know if they will. I'm going to probably lose some salvages here, which is absolutely going to suck. Let's build some of our own assault tanks here. I'm just going to micro these guys out of the way so that we hopefully don't have too many problems. In the meantime, I've already detonated this, so I'm going to start mining here. which is going to give me a bit of an... I mean, look at the amount of units they're throwing at me here. It's just bonkers. It's absolutely bonkers. We're going to go back to mining here. There we go. Hopefully once I get power reserves, which again is a very expensive upgrade, my carrier can defend itself a little bit better, but the AI is throwing just an impossible number of units at me. Thankfully, I'm actually building some railguns, so I should be able to use those, assuming the AI doesn't target them down, to hopefully pick off these assault ships without losing too many harvesters. But I will certainly lose some of my light attack vessels. Not really a big deal. Thankfully, you can kite very easily with these railguns, and you can also exploit high ground, which is a neat little feature. So, you might be thinking, why the hell would anyone ever want to play Homeworld if Homeworld didn't have the three-dimensional component to it? Well, I think there's actually a really good reason to do that, simply because Homeworld was good even without that element. And in this case, what you have is a very solid ground-based RTS that uses high ground as an advantage, and also low ground as a disadvantage. Those are things which I think are really, really cool, and the game exploits that quite nicely, and you can do that too. It also exploits line of sight really well. Once you start building armored attack vehicles, you can actually deploy a smoke screen, and these smoke screens are very, very effective. They can actually block line of sight, especially from high damage units like railguns, which is a very, very effective way of dealing with them. So there's a nice little bit of micro involved in that. Didn't lose too much here. I can definitely do with some more salvages, and we just need more money right now. I'm going to move my carrier closer, and I'm also going to enable my repair beams to get things fixed up here. You'll see the line of sight of these units here, and some of those are unfortunately bouncing off the terrain, but now we actually have a bunch of railguns, which should help me drive these away. They're not ideal against these little sand skimmers, but we have endured the first assault of nonsense from the AI, which, you know, threw 3 times as many units at me as I could possibly throw at it. Alright, let's add some armor here, shall we? And we also need to upgrade the carrier production once I've got the money for this. I don't want to lose this support cruiser, but it might actually happen. I do have some tanks out now, so that should hopefully help deal with these. This thing is burning. I might have to pull it back, or indeed just deploy another support cruiser with some repairs, assuming I've got the money to do so. Now, this game is fairly easy to control, I have to admit. Homeworld, for some people, is very daunting due to that three-dimensional aspect. I don't believe that to be the case this time around. So I'm pretty pleased with how intuitive I found it, you know? The switching back and forth between the tactical view and the main view is, to me, very, very intuitive. I don't really have too many problems with it, and hopefully you guys will like it as well. I will say that not being able to rebind these hotkeys is a giant pain in the ass, but once I've learned them, it shouldn't be too much of a problem. I'm going to build a few more salvages for obvious reasons here. Repair beams are now on, so this support cruiser should be able to help, but I'm not getting efficient mining. Now, what I can do with this railgun is to try and maybe do some damage. So I'm going to send this railgun squad over here. As I mentioned earlier, the AI is pretty dumb at times, so using long-range units like railguns and actually kiting effectively is a very good way of eliminating a large number of units over time. And even what I can do here is deploy smokescreen to prevent these guys from firing on the railguns. Unfortunately, it kind of works both ways, so my railguns can't really fire here either. So maybe I just maneuver my armored assault around. But I've got to say, like, the smokescreen feature is really, really awesome. There are some RTS that like to do line of sight and really exploit that to a great degree, but I think this one does it very, very well, and I'm actually quite impressed as a result. I think that people are going to enjoy exploiting height and line of sight an awful lot if they like a little bit of micromanagement. It's not like resource-intensive micromanagement. It doesn't require 300 actions per minute, but I think it's a very satisfying form of micromanagement, and I do enjoy it as a direct result. We're going to send this other salvager over here. There we go. Alright, my armored assault is taking fire, but it's got railgun support, so I'm not too worried at this point. Let's get some other tech on the board here. I'm going to try to work on my assault cruiser fabrication. Oh, this is going to get ugly if I'm not careful. I'm going to need to manufacture something. I don't have repairs on. Get some weapons. No, don't build railguns. That's a bad choice here. Armored assault. I might end up losing some salvages here. That would actually suck. There we go. I'm going to move my armored assault back. I got caught a little bit off guard there. My carrier weapons are decent, but they don't kill fast enough. That's the main problem, so my salvages will take some damage, but some basic micro should save most of them, I hope. There we go, got a tank. Let's get a logistics module out there, right there, so we can just keep building. And as you can see, like, against hard AI, things do get a little bit hectic, but that is also because the AI, as I have mentioned many times before, cheats like a bastard. Alright, we're going to send the railguns forward to see what kind of damage we can do here. And once I've got assault cruiser fabrication done, I can hopefully build one of those. And then suddenly the AI's progress is going to come to a grinding halt here. At least that's the hope, anyway. They're doing some pretty effective harassment. But I do have some more tanks out now, so I'm not too worried about their ability to do damage. I will need some more salvages to replace the ones that I lost, though. There we go. They're not too pricey, so not too worrisome. Hello! Alright, our railguns actually got dived on by sand skimmers, which was very effective. So they're going to have to be pulled back. They don't do very, very well against light units at all, and the game does have, I wouldn't say hard counters. In fact, the game has a lot of soft counters, but maneuverable units like sand skimmers are very, very effective at taking out artillery pieces like that. So that's a nice little move there by the AI. So far, so good, right? I mean, it seems like a pretty solid RTS. So while I'm talking you through this, let me talk a little bit about how the campaign works. So it's relatively similar to the other Homeworld games in the sense that it has persistence. Now, your units can gain ranks, and these ranks will give them significant bonuses. If we check this right here, this guy's rank 3. So he has a huge amount of benefit, you know? As you can see. 100% to 100 to vehicle hull, minus 15% reload speed, minus 10% damage. It's very powerful. So keeping these units alive is key, and it's also a big factor in dealing with the campaign because there will be persistence there as well. So keeping your units alive means that you're going to gain a nice advantage. Alright, I should now finally be able to build an assault cruiser, which I think is going to solve most of our problems here, because the assault cruiser will wreck these guys. So we're just going to get that built up here. In the meantime, maybe we get some armor level 2. That would be helpful. And we start building up some units to try and kill them. I don't know why he's wandering over there, but let's not do that. We're mining pretty effectively. We should really take our third base here, but so far so good here. We've repelled their attacks. The campaign otherwise is quite story-driven, with a good amount of voice acting, a pretty well-written script as far as I'm concerned, and a lot of nice-looking cutscenes. It uses a pretty nice art style that's quite reminiscent of Homeworld Remastered, so you may enjoy that. That's just a sand skimmer. I'm not too worried. The support cruiser should be able to handle that. Although we might want to maybe build some turrets around there with a base runner. That might be something that we might want to consider doing. And I'm going to build some more tanks out as well. There we go. Just so we actually have some more units, because they are not messing around. And I'm going to lose the logistics module here as well, which is a little bit annoying. Got my units on the way. Alright, so we're able to kill some salvages here with our little bit of harass. We're taking some railgun fire, but I'm going to lay down a smoke screen and then just advance in the cover of that so that the railgun can't actually hit me. Which is a really, really cool tactic, by the way, and I love the fact that they've implemented that. There we go, so I should hopefully be able to do some damage. Let's hop back here. See what damage was done. Not a huge amount. My assault cruiser's up now, so I'm not really too worried about their ability to kill me. It's got a variety of different powers. It's a very, very powerful unit against light units, so I am not too concerned about this whatsoever. And hey, we found the carrier. Alright. Cool. So I'm going to target down their base run and then probably back off. If I put down smoke here, I may be able to block off its ability. They've also spawned an honor guard cruiser here, which is probably a little bit more than I can handle. So maybe time to back off here and also get my manufacturing going. As I said before, the AI does cheat, so it does make it a little bit tricky to keep up with its production. The problem is that if you play this on normal mode, what I will say is that the AI is just so goddamn stupid that you'll be very disappointed, I think. The AI allowed me to harass it to death repeatedly by just sending a couple of light units into its mineral line and just kill all of its salvages repeatedly. And all it did was repeatedly send salvages at me, knowing that they would lose. Or I guess not knowing that they would lose. I'm gonna put down some smoke here to cover the retreat and build up some assault cruisers so I can really go in here. I was very disappointed by that. The campaign AI does a good job of hiding the fact that it's not very good. And the way that it does that is, again, by throwing a lot more units at you. So I thought that was pretty reasonable. But the AI in Skirmish is very, very obvious in just how weak that it is. It either has to cheat to win, or it's going to lose, unless you are very, very new to RTS. So you're going to be reliant very much on the multiplayer after the campaign is done. Is the campaign good? Well, for the most part, yes. I would say that the campaign is pretty reasonable. It's a pretty well put together campaign with a decent story that I actually enjoy quite a bit. We're going to launch ourselves a missile here. We're dealing with an honor guard cruiser, which is not a nice thing to be fighting. We should be able to handle it. There we go. We're going to put overdrive on our cruiser here and then maybe move our support cruiser in to repair it. Should do the job. What I will say about the campaign is that I was a little disappointed with some of the mission variety and also the pacing of it. A lot of the levels seem absolutely happy to let you wait as long as you want to finish them, even though it claims there's a sense of urgency. There are some missions which have timed elements to them, but the vast majority of them is like, hey, take as long as you damn well please, really, in order to deal with this mission. And I'm like, really? That's a little bit unfortunate, especially after seeing the StarCraft 2's campaign. I think that this feels a little outdated in the way that its campaign is designed. I will say again that the story is good though, and the persistence element does mean that you are encouraged to try and keep your units alive, which I think is great. Having just this elite tank that survived 5 or 6 missions and is really well ranked up is pretty cool, and there are some missions that give you very limited resources, so you're actually forced to utilize high ground and line of sight cover in order to really make sure that you don't end up losing your units unnecessarily, and I like that. I think that that is a nice feature, and there are way too many RTS that can be won simply by just throwing units at people. I would say that Homeworld Deserts of Kharak does a decent job of making sure that is not the case. However, once the campaign is done, you're going to be stuck in this multiplayer, and the question is, does it have legs? Well, as I pointed out earlier, they do only have 5 maps, and only 2 of them are designed for 1 versus 1 play, which will probably be the preferred ranked mode. I mean, I can't say that for certain, of course, but in the vast majority of circumstances, ranked play, generally speaking, is designed around 1 versus 1. So I'm not 100% sure that the game is going to have legs in terms of multiplayer. And if that's the case, well, the Skirmish AI is so poor, and it just seems like the campaign doesn't have any replayability, and on normal mode in particular is way too easy, that I imagine people are going to get kind of bored of it. As a result, the game kind of comes up feeling a little bit undercooked. It seems like it needed a little bit more time in the oven. We needed to see more from this game. We needed to see more maps, we need to see more units, maybe a couple of extra factions. You know, there is a 3rd faction in the game. It's just that they're not playable, so maybe we could do something with that, for instance. So that's a little bit disappointing. What I'd also say is that the way that the campaign introduces new units is probably one of the poorest I've seen in RTS to date. A lot of the time in RTS, you need to contrive the reason as to why you suddenly have access to a brand new unit. And that's fair. Yeah, that's okay. I understand that you have to do that because that's the way that real-time strategy works. You know, you've got to balance your game in terms of advancing your tech over the course of a campaign. But Homeworld, it's kind of always been like this, and they haven't really made too much of an effort to change that. The game is really like, oh, suddenly we can make this. And there's just no story justification for that at all. It's like, right, wait, what? We can build battle cruisers now? Why couldn't we build that 5 missions ago? I could have really used that 5 missions ago. And obviously, from a gameplay perspective, I understand that, but there is an element of ludonarrative dissonance there that I don't really like. I think they could have done a bit of a better job of explaining as to why you suddenly have access to this technology. They don't justify it well at all, as far as I'm concerned. There we go. All right, that's been destroyed. You know, the stupid thing is, the AI has had so many more resources than me, but it's done a terrible job of actually attacking me at this point. And I haven't even been playing all that well. I mean, this is like my 4th Skirmish game, and I'm commentating, so I'm distracted. But, you know, the AI just is really like the biggest weak spot of this game. So I think if you're going to enjoy this beyond the campaign, you are going to have to play multiplayer. And as to whether or not the campaign is worth the price, I don't know if it is. I mean, this is a $50 game that comes with 5 maps, very basic multiplayer, and almost non-functional, dumb AI. That's not great. That really is not. I would expect a great deal more, honestly. Anyway, what I haven't shown you is the ability to launch missiles and also launch aircraft. So, if you liked Homeworld, you'll love the fact that the fighters have that little Homeworld-style engine trail going on, which is really cool. So, I'm going to build fabrication, and then I'm going to show you how you launch them. You kind of launch them at a general area, and then they'll try and attack. So, they're not... You can control them, but not as accurately as you can control the ground units here. I built a bunch of railguns in the process as well, actually. There we go, and let's get the mag accelerator upgrade. Because as I said, the railguns are really effective against the AI's carrier. I do wonder where the AI's carrier is. He's probably mined the map out by now, because as I said, the AI cheats, so he's probably in the corner here. We've got a bit of a ping over here, so let's see what we get. We've got a few units. I mean, this should be relatively easy just to destroy with what I have. I'm going to launch a couple of tactical missiles at this group, and, I mean, you can see that it's just that they're not even responding. I just blasted them to pieces. Unbelievably simple there. The AI is so disappointing. I keep bringing it up, but I think it's the nail in this game's coffin. Like, is this a good RTS? Yes, I think it is. I think it's a bit threadbare, but it's got some really great elements. It really does. Like, I love the line of sight. I love the use of smoke. I think that's wonderful. I love the shuntable systems for the cruisers. I think that's a really cool little element that the game has there. Unfortunately, the AI does a terrible job of using these shunts. I mean, for instance, it's not even buffing its armor here or trying to fight back. This is only 6 units, and I'm killing their carrier with it, which is ludicrous. All right, let's build some. Have we got planes yet? We do. We're just run out of logistics. Okay, we can sort that out. Let's build some. Gunships are the most fun. I like those a lot. But you can also build a lot of squadrons of fighters, which can intercept and also fire missiles at the ground. It's a little bit of a sort of Command and Conquer general style of dealing with air that I think is pretty good. I'm gonna beat this carrier. Where did all these resources go? The AI mined out its entire side of the map and couldn't kill me. I'm gonna actually back off because I don't want to kill this carrier right now. I want to show you the aircraft first. Oh man. But yeah, like I said, I think it's a pretty good RTS. Like, it doesn't require a huge amount of actions per minute, but it's still got some really cool micro techniques. Positioning is really important in this game. Line of sight is really important. The use of smoke is maybe one of the coolest things that I've seen in RTS in a long time. It's not the only game to have done it. That I will happily admit, but it did it really, really well. So I actually approve of that a great deal. And as I said, it's got a decent campaign. It also evokes Homeworld. I know it doesn't have the three-dimensional feel to it, but the use of the original composer and the factions that you may recognize from Homeworld is a really, really cool element of the game. And I think they've implemented that very well. It feels faithful, frankly. Also, the way that units are built, you know, having the larger type units, the cruisers and all that sort of thing, and being able to upgrade them with research the way that I'm doing right now. Yeah, this all feels very, very Homeworld. If you're looking for Homeworld 3, this isn't it, but it is a really solid ground-based RTS, and we don't get a lot of those lately. Now, I think I'll have a lot of fun playing this in multiplayer, assuming it actually gets a multiplayer community, but therein lies the problem. It's a $50 game that might not get a multiplayer scene, and if it doesn't, you're going to be left high and dry, because the Skirmish AI will not keep you playing. It's just too poor. I think this game needed a little bit more time in the oven. You know, why is this carrier not even trying to get itself repaired? It's dead. I've won the game. I wasn't even trying. I just beat the hardest AI. I probably have to fight against several AI in order to make this challenging. So that's what really disappoints me. You know, I think it's a good-looking game. I think, you know, it suffers from the fact that the entire game is set in the desert, so it has a very large lack of tile sets, absolutely. I think that maybe it suffers quite a bit from that, actually. And the maps do certainly lack unique features, such as capturable buildings and all that sort of thing. But I don't think that's a major issue. I think the units very much evoke the aesthetic of Homeworld. The carriers in particular remind me of the motherships. And of course, you're going to be seeing Homeworld-esque stuff throughout the game and the story as well, not to spoil too much. But in its current state, this is a hard sell at $50 in my eyes. And I know I've made the argument that a multiplayer game can be worth a lot of money, absolutely. And it does have a solid campaign, it does. But I know a lot of people really enjoy playing single player and comp stomp and skirmish mode. And this game fails on all of those counts because the AI is brain dead. I wasn't even playing efficiently there, and I just slapped the hardest AI about with no problem whatsoever while talking. And not even paying attention. And I'm not that good at RTS. Maybe I'm better than average, because I play a lot of StarCraft, but I am not a good Homeworld player, and I'm not a great RTS player. So to me, I think, unless you are a really big fan of Homeworld, or you are very much enthused and have a group of people that you're going to be playing multiplayer with, this at full price might be a wait-and-see situation. Yes, the campaign is solid. It is. It's good. I like it. I think that the mission variety could do with fleshing out a little bit, but otherwise, I like the campaign. I think it's well voice acted. The script is pretty well written. It lacks a little bit of the intrigue that some of the previous Homeworld games has, but it does have a little bit of it. You know, I think they could have maybe done a bit of a better job there, and it also gets to the point where the big bad, you know, your big antagonist, doesn't seem quite as threatening as you move through the game. I think the first few levels of the game are really great because they put you up against a foe that's clearly technologically superior, but that doesn't become the case later on. So I think that they take a lot of the urgency and they take a lot of the stakes out of it by removing this element of fighting against superior odds. The game and this campaign also feels like a glorified tutorial. Yes, it does have solid missions, but it holds your hand all the time. It won't stop. I mean, even 15 missions in, it's still telling me what to do. And it's beyond just, oh, you have to defend this area. It actually tells me how. It's like, oh, we better place some mines and some turrets down. Oh, we just conveniently, try again. I can't say that word. Conveniently gave you a unit type that is extremely good against this particular set of enemies. Just build it and you'll win. And then there are times where there's a mission which you can't reach your ally by ground. So it hammers into you, better use aircraft. I'm like, really? Thanks for telling me. You know, 15 or so missions in, I think I would have learned the game well enough to realize that I can't reach these guys by ground and I have to use aircraft. It holds your hand way, way too much. And for what is basically a hardcore real-time strategy game, there's actually no reason for it to do that. I understand tutorials, but don't make your entire campaign a tutorial. It's obnoxious. I personally did not enjoy that aspect of it. And it did take away from the narrative. It really did, because I'm supposed to be an experienced commander. Stop treating me like a child. It's ludicrous. Anyway, conclusion. This has got all the elements of a really good real-time strategy in it. Decent unit variety, could be better. A lot of upgrades, decent tech tree, great line of sight mechanics, awesome use of smoke and things like height advantage. And I think that that really adds an element that Homeworld didn't necessarily have. So, yes, it may not provide the 3D experience, the true 3D experience that Homeworld did, but it's got its own spin. Like, it stands on its own. If I were to play this game and had never played Homeworld before, I'd still tell you this was a good RTS. But I think for $50, this is not necessarily a great sell. There aren't enough maps, the AI sucks, the fact that you're basically relying on multiplayer for replayability when we have no idea how big the multiplayer community is going to be is a sticking point. It is. The game does not ship with a map editor, and I don't know what kind of DLC we're going to expect, if any, and I don't know what kind of modding scene this game is going to have, if any. So as a result, unless you are entirely okay with paying $50 for a Homeworld campaign and just wiping out the possibility that Skirmish is going to entertain you, I would maybe hold off to see it either get improved or to see it go down in price. That would be my conclusion. In the 11 or so hours that I've played Deserts of Kharak, I for the most part had a good time, but I found it to be too easy. I would recommend to anyone that has any RTS experience, play the campaign on classic difficulty. You will get more out of it that way. I played most of it on normal, and I found it to be a joke. I never lost a single mission. I was drowning in resources. I had way too much time because most of the missions in the game don't actually have a time limit on them and allow you to spend as long as you want building up your army before something happens. So, it's definitely got its faults. It's got a lot of faults. And that's a bit of a shame. It could have been a lot better. I think it could have done with a couple more months in the oven. It's maybe coming out a little bit too early. But that doesn't mean it's not a good RTS. It is. It's well designed, it's got a great aesthetic, it's got an awesome soundtrack thanks to the original composer of Homeworld, and it definitely pays homage in a great way while also standing on its own as a spiritual successor to the Homeworld series, or indeed a spiritual prequel. So, a cautious recommendation for me from Homeworld Deserts of Kharak, available for $50 or your regional equivalent on Steam. My name has been TotalBiscuit. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, then by all means do click the like button, and if you disliked it, then there is a dislike button there if you choose to use it. I'll see you next time.